I guess I always knew that I wouldn't achieve my potential in the police, I think, because I did lack confidence in my ability sometimes. I think there wasn't always the support there. I don't always think the right people were in leadership positions, and sometimes there were missed opportunities for people who would have been excellent leaders to get to that. You need another lens, and you sometimes just need somebody else who's experienced in that area to sort of shine a light on it, what help you find the path. So yeah, I think blue light was definitely that for me. And like you said earlier about investing in yourself, I've never been afraid to sort of put my money where my mouth is sometimes, and spend out on courses and training, and it's paid dividends. One of the biggest things I got from working with you was it really built my confidence up, as much as the kind of practical skills and the almost the weekly. I knew I had a call with you, so I would have to get that stuff done in between to make a difference. So that was great, but I think also just you're really supportive, and you really give people a boost and help their self-esteem grow, and therefore that people are much more likely to be successful in what they're trying then.
Hi Nick, it's fantastic to have you here. Thanks so much for agreeing to be interviewed on the Blue Dot Leavers podcast. It's I know we've been talking about this for months, and I've been nagging you, so thanks for making the time for me. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
So what we're going to talk through is, in fact, if we start off with what it is you're currently doing, and then we'll talk about what you were doing prior to that and your policing career as well, and because you've had a couple of changes along the way, haven't you?
Yeah, so my new role is sales manager for the public sector in a software company, which if you said to me I would be doing ever in my life, I would have laughed. So yeah, it's a real challenge, and it's brand new for me. But yeah, so that's my current role. I work for a company called Synalogik, and they have a software product called Scout, which we sell to private and public sector, but for the police in particular, we aggregate data for them. So the time it takes to do an investigation is cut down dramatically, and so I've been getting the opportunity to work with lots of police again, and going around to different forces, which has been great. So yes, that's a sort of my new role in a nutshell.
Brilliant. Oh, so exciting. And obviously we worked one-to-one, didn't we, for a few months. We'll go into that in a bit more detail as well, but I just love how you flipped. And so what was it you were doing prior to joining Synalogik?
So before that I was working in banking, but specifically in financial intelligence within banking. So it was my role that I went to after leaving the police, and I was there for 5 years. And I did a variety of things, but a lot of it was around dissemination of intelligence. I was a member of something called the JIMLIT, which is the Joint Money Laundering Intelligence Task Force, which is a public-private partnership between the banks and people like the NCA, HMRC, Border Force, etc. So I sat on an expert working group, and I had a particular focus in modern slavery and immigration crime. So a lot of my work towards the last couple of years, my role there was tailored around understanding what that threat was to the world really, and then how that translated into a threat to the banking industry, and then how do you disseminate that threat, and how do you ward it off within policies and training and a variety of things. And I was lucky to partner with a charity, so we did some work together and created a training package which went out to all of the frontline staff within the bank. So it was around 9,000 people actually. So that was really a really great project that I did there. So yes, I spent 5 years doing a variety of things. I worked with a lot of ex-police actually. There was a lot of my ex-force that ended up coming and working there too. So it was sometimes a bit of a home from home, which was nice. So yeah, so quite varied in what I did. but obviously touched very much on crime and intelligence still. So.
And so was that a fairly much a direct lift from what you were doing in the police into the banking industry, or what was your background in policing that then helped you get into the banking industry?
Yeah, so I was in well, they called it all sorts of things, but I guess most people know it as the economic crime unit, and I spent around about 7 years there. So I started off there in what they called volume fraud, so dealing with lower level types of frauds, things like your eBay scams and dating scams, things like that. And then whilst I was there, I did my detectives accreditation, and then I started to work on bigger cases, and I ended up working on major fraud cases, money laundering. So yes, very much that role set me up for going into the financial sector. And I had a colleague who actually went to the bank that I ended up at, and he opened my eyes to what was possible and helped me, coached me with the interview process and application process. And yeah, as I said, I ended up working with a number of people that I used to work with. So yeah, it was an ideal transition from financial investigation into financial intelligence within the bank. It was, it was a very different, but yeah, obviously I had a background in all the money laundering regs and risk and investigation. So yeah, it was a good transition in that respect, but still a lot to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going
And
into
also
the commercial world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sorry, Nick. I was just going to say it also shows the power of who you know as well, isn't it? That's so, we talk about it a huge amount on the podcast, and I nag people about it all the time, but it is so much about who you know, networking. Yeah.
100% across my life, in everything I've done, not just in my working life. It is always about getting out there, meeting people, having genuine conversations, genuine connections with people, because the best things in my life have come out of that, without a doubt. So yeah. And training actually as well, and then what we did together, and again in other areas of my life, my sort of leisure time, again, it's about empowering yourself with training, knowledge, leaning on people who are experts, because I'm not an expert at writing a CV, so get someone who is to do it. So yeah, I thoroughly recommend networking and training for all aspects of your life, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then being prepared to invest in yourself is a massive thing, isn't it, as well? So yeah, definitely. How long did you do in the police?
I did just under 14 years.
Okay.
So,
and
yeah, almost half my official service.
Yeah, sure.
It was.
So, without hopefully being too personal, but what was the catalyst for you then? What was it that made you think, actually, this is no longer for me? And you then had the opportunity to move into banking?
Well, I think I've been asked this quite a lot of times, really, and sometimes I have different answers. And I think there's not just one specific reason. I think it's a multitude of things, really. I suppose I had quite a bad injury fairly early in my career, which I think knocked my confidence in terms of how much I could physically protect myself. So I used to feel quite vulnerable. And although I was in an office type role for quite a few years, I still had to do things like night crime car, and where there was cancelled rest days, or there was anything, you had to be prepared to be on the front line at any point. And and I think the fact that I felt quite vulnerable physically, like, affected my confidence and also affected how safe I felt. So I think that probably was a factor. I also think the changes politically were a big factor as well. So for instance, the change to the pension, that was always something which just traditionally kept people in the role, and essentially I was going to have to work several years more for less. So that kind of security of the pension wasn't there. It didn't differ particularly as far as I could tell, not that I'm a pension expert, but from what I could get in the private sector then. So it felt less risky in that respect. And also I didn't have the confidence it wouldn't change again then, because they'd changed it once. What was stop them changing it again? So I think that was also a factor. And then I think just seeing other people go. I remember there was a period early in my police career where a lot of people went to the Met. There was a big jump, and then there started just, I think I was kind of on the sort of up curve. I was one of the maybe first-ish to go, but there started to be a few people go, and it just made you think and open my eyes to what was possible, and some of the roles they were going into, some of the salaries they were achieving, and the freedom that goes along with that. No more weekends, no more nights working, feeling more safe. And I think all of those things combined, plus the fact that I had the relevant skill set to go into something such as the financial sector, and there seemed to be plenty of work, plenty of opportunity there. So I think it was a number of things combined. I think also having a family, I didn't want the upheaval of constant shift pattern changes, and even when you got one, there was always a threat. You knew it was temporary. There was always going to be a change, and there comes a time when you just don't want that anymore. So yeah, I think it was a combination of all those things, really.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. What I find with a lot of conversations I have as well is that people are stuck in that shall I go, shall I stay type thing for some considerable period of time. Could you remember how long you'd been mulling it over for?
Well, I pretty early after I had that injury, I did actually apply for a couple of jobs, and I had a bit of bad luck, because I remember getting a letter saying, sorry, you were unsuccessful, and I thought, well, didn't even have an interview. I thought you just hadn't bothered with me. And then I rang them and they said, oh no, we wrote to you and offered you an interview, and then they automatically sent this follow-up letter. And so I kind of missed that opportunity. So I dipped my toe a little bit fairly early on, and then kind of settled down, had a baby, and then I was really focused on doing my detectives, and I was enjoying the financial investigation that I was doing. But yeah, there had been, of course, there were times when you sort of think, God, what am I doing? But for quite a chunk, I was okay. I'd got myself into a role that I was happy with, but I guess I always knew that I wouldn't achieve my potential in the police, I think, because I did lack confidence in my ability sometimes. I think there wasn't always the support there. I don't always think the right people were in leadership positions, and sometimes there were missed opportunities for people who would have been excellent leaders to get to that. And I think, again, that was probably a bit of a factor, because I would see people who wanted to climb the ranks, but they would have to be prepared to then be posted anywhere and do any sort of role, and you didn't really have any control in that, really. And so yeah, it felt like the police was still very stuck in its ways, quite a stuffy system. The system of boards, I would see people go from multiple boards who would have been excellent leaders and fail them, and the whole thing just was, it just left a bit of a bad taste, really. It wasn't something that I wanted to try. I didn't feel like I had the confidence anyway, and I think in the back of my mind I always knew I'm probably capable of more, but I'm not sure this environment is going to be where I'll achieve that. So that kind of was another factor in thinking, yeah, just be brave and see what else you can do, really. And I guess as well, you know, there are options for career breaks. It wasn't what I did, but you sort of knew that there was a bit of a chance to come back. The door wasn't completely closed. I'm sure, you know, I have got a friend actually who I met through in the financial sector, and she'd come from policing and she went back to it after about 2-3 years. So I guess there was always that little bit of the comfort zone there, because you knew you could could probably go back to it. It wasn't all lost.
There is actually a policy, isn't there? There's I think college policing have a 5-year policy about that, don't they? I think in terms of being able to go back and stuff. So
I thought there was
it's
something
written in
like
now.
that. Yeah,
it is definitely.
Right.
But,
yeah.
So we've spoken about the reasons why you wanted to leave policing, and obviously you then went into the banking industry, which seems a really good fit. And I'll talk about the path of least resistance quite a lot as well, because that's a very obvious route to go down. But obviously after 5 years and when you and I started working together, it was very clear it wasn't a great fit for you. Can you just give us a bit of a clue as to what it was? And I also say a lot that the first job that you go to after policing is probably not the one that you're going to stay in forever, and that obviously clearly the case for you. So what was a catalyst for the banking role for you?
Yeah, so I think I probably stayed there a bit too long. The role and the department I was in grew. So when I started, there were only 2 people, and I started with another person, and we kind of doubled the department to 4. And then over those years, it grew and grew and grew and changed, and I just felt like the regulated sector as well was an environment I'd been in all those years in the police where you had to be so careful. And I just felt quite constrained, and sometimes I felt like the role I was in was very open to interpretation, and I feel like I'd just come to the end of the road with my kind of motivation for it, and it didn't feel like it really suited my personality. I think as you get older, you kind of understand yourself a bit more, and you also realize that we're not here forever, and it felt like the right sort of time to make a change. And I think, without harping on about the pandemic, but that had a big impact on my mental health. I was working from home on my own, and I just realized that I needed a role that brought me into more contact with people and allowed me to be myself more, and I definitely wasn't feeling that in that role anymore. And I think I've always been the sort of person to try things in my life, in particularly in my social life and leisure life. So it's funny because I'm not always the most confident person, but I am a confident personality. It's weird actually, but yeah. So I just thought, what have I got to lose? I knew about the blue light stuff. I'd followed you from sort of when you started really, and really enjoyed. And I actually I used one of your podcasts on interview for an internal move within the previous job at the bank. I didn't get the role, but the interview went really well, and they actually were going to consider me for a different post, which they felt would fit me more. So I knew that you were doing the coaching then, and that I could probably get a bit more from it. And so that was another way that opened my eyes to what was possible, because I could see from the podcast and the group that other people were doing it, and there were all sorts of roles, and that actually your skills are much more, I hate the bit of a tired phrase on transferable skills, but it's
brilliant.
true, it is true.
It is,
but you need another lens, and you sometimes just need somebody else who's experienced in that area to sort of shine a light on it, help you find the path. So I think blue light was definitely that for me. And like you said earlier about investing in yourself, I've never been afraid to sort of put my money where my mouth is sometimes, and spend out on courses and training, and it's paid dividends. So
I've done the same, Nick.
So,
and it's a bit of a bottle test, isn't it? Because working one-to-one isn't particularly cheap, and it's it is, you can understand why people sort of go, particularly at the moment, obviously, but hopefully you've more than made up for it in terms of the route that you've gone down, and the salary, and all that sort of stuff as well. So I've done exactly the same. You have to invest in yourself and splash out, because it does pay back. It's difficult. It is difficult.
I understand that it is not for everyone. It's not always possible, but I think there's always ways and means to do stuff. So
I agree. So we obviously started working one-to-one and went all in. And one of the first things we did was actually the Clarity 4D profiling. And how did you find that?
Oh, I find things like that fascinating. I love doing stuff like that. So yeah, it was really interesting. And you kind of have a fixed idea of, oh, I'm going to be this color or I'm going to be that color, and obviously it relates to the sort of type of personality. But what I found really interesting when I did the full session was actually how you think, oh, well, I sit in this and that one's better than that one, or this one's great because I'm in the sort of creative bit and the fun bit. But actually it opened my eyes to the other bits that I touch on, and also the perception of both sides of it. So it can be perceived very well, but it could also be perceived in another way. So that was a real eye opener, but it also helped me understand myself a bit more. And obviously we use that to tailor the types of roles that I went for, and I think that was really useful because I was looking for jobs and I was constantly getting jobs, basically the same job in banking, just at a different place. And it would have been so easy to just go and do that. And it was quite daunting sometimes to think, oh, there's no way I can go for some of these roles, but I did. And some of the contacts I got, I remember, do you remember there was one post that was £700 a day consultant at a record company? And obviously it didn't go much further, but to just even be considered by somebody for that was just insane. And just it built my confidence more and more. And I think when you said about obviously investing in yourself, I think one of the biggest things I got from working with you was it really built my confidence up, as much as the kind of practical skills and the almost the weekly. I knew I had a call with you, so I would have to get that stuff done in between to make a difference. So that was great. But I think also just you're really supportive and you really give people a boost and help their self-esteem grow, and therefore that people are much more likely to be successful in what they're trying then.
Amazing.
So,
thanks. That's really lovely of you. Thank you for that. That's really kind of you. Because we also did some work with Charlotte as well. So we put you in touch with Charlotte Eve, and can you remember what she did for you?
Yeah, so Charlotte did my CV and my LinkedIn profile, and I really enjoyed working with her. They say people like talking about themselves, don't they? So it was nice to kind of, you go through it all and in such a different way. It's so refreshing to put yourself into your CV as well, not just your work and not just a list of all the boring tasks that you
roles
can do.
And responsibilities.
I think that's what made the big difference. And then the LinkedIn was similar, and even more so, because it felt so personal. It felt like me talking, and she was really able to convey my personality within it, and also pull out all sorts of skills and ways of framing things that I would never have been able to do. So even if people listening to this weren't considering full coaching, I would really recommend having a professional CV and LinkedIn done, because without a doubt that's what got me this new job. 100%.
Definitely. I think Charlotte just has this amazing ability to be able to speak to you and get your personality across, both within a CV and within your LinkedIn profile. And she's just so good at what she does. She really is. And it's so lovely to see people's reactions and to speak to people after they get the CVs back. And it's like, wow, this is amazing, because it's not just roles and responsibilities, not just what you do for a job. It's who you are, and that oozes through that the LinkedIn profile on your CV is just fantastic.
Yeah, she's such a lovely woman as well. It was just a real pleasure to work with her for that. And like you say, you get it back and you think, again, it's just another confidence. You think, wow, I have done a lot of stuff and I have got a lot of skills. And actually, because everyone sometimes suffers with that imposter syndrome, actually I can go for these roles. There's no reason I can't. And that in itself is just huge. But yeah, she's got a real talent for, and I think because I would recruit in my old post in the bank, and I would see so many CVs, and some were okay, some were, getting more modern, and then other ones. I remember a policeman's one, actually, it was 7 pages long.
Christ.
And yeah, it was, the poor bloke obviously just didn't understand what needed to be done. And yeah, so I think he probably would have had some amazing skills, and but a 7-page CV is not going to help you get a job, unfortunately. So,
no, that's a real shame, isn't it? That's yeah. Wow. I've never seen a 7-page. I've seen some CVs, but I've never seen 7 pages. That's pretty. Wow.
Yeah, it sticks in my mind.
Yeah. Now you've got a real interest, haven't you? And we'll maybe talk about what you've just been up to this weekend as well, I guess. But and what I want to try and get over within this episode is the fact that you and I, one of the reasons why we work together. You're gonna have to excuse me. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so apologies. One of the things I wanted to get over was that it was a complete flip, wasn't it? You wanted to do something that was much more aligned to your personality, to your interests, your love, your passion. Do you want to talk about that and give us a bit of an insight into you as a person in terms of what's really important to you, and what you've been up to this weekend as well? Because that will then help people to understand the type of roles that we were looking for, and the fact that we always, as cops, people sort of get this all the time in the group and in the conversations we have. I've no idea what I can do, but actually it doesn't really matter. It's more about, you can do a complete flip. Just please excuse me. You can do a complete flip. We've just got to look at what skills and experience and what you love doing, the passion, and get you in front of the right people. And it all just happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, my main passion in life is music, and it always has been. And I had a background in music anyway. So I studied music at college. I then did a music management degree, and I worked at a music venue for several years, and I just had the time of my life. So obviously I left that and went into quite a sort of serious career, and that was great, very challenging, and I really enjoyed a lot of it. But in the back of my mind was knowing how much enjoyment and love I've got from music and being around it. And I knew that there were probably professional roles within places like the music industry, such as record labels, venues, places like that potentially, why not have a go at. And I didn't know where to start, which is why I came to you for some help. But I knew that, again, I sort of touched on it earlier, that not that time's running out, but I'm in my early 40s now. I've still got a good chunk of time left to work. So I've still got a valid amount of time to go to somewhere else. But equally, if I don't do it now, that it's going to get harder to make any sort of transition. So yeah, so with the profiling, and just the fact that you were so encouraging and like, yeah, you can totally flip, you can totally do that, just spurred me on. And then you were looking for roles and opening my eyes to all sorts of things that I just did not know existed, or where to look, let alone have the confidence to even try. And then obviously working with you, bit incrementally, kind of, okay, so start looking in this place for these types of roles, and let's get your CV done and have the profiling, and all after a while all of that just starts to come together. So I think we set on 2 things, so sales and the music industry, and obviously that's so broad, and we were really starting to sort of then get into the granular detail of what that looked like, and there was a lot of opportunity from the looks of it. And obviously I ended up in a sales role, and I don't know why, I just always thought I would really love to do sales. And it's hard to kind of put my finger on it 100%, but I guess it's a challenge still, and it's working with people, and that's what appealed to me. Obviously, it's not the music industry, but it was another area that I thought I could probably get quite passionate about and really enjoy, and that has definitely been the case. So yeah, so the flip was that I was going to go into something I had no experience in really. My music qualifications were, they're 20 plus years old. They're not really worth anything now in the sort of modern. Everything's changed hugely from back then. And yeah, so I didn't just want to go into another banking role. I didn't just want to go into a council or just something really obvious. I knew long term that would not make me happy, and I would end up back at this same point, and so I might as well just go for it. And that's what we did. So
yeah, I think that was lovely that we sort of morphed, didn't we? Because initially what we were trying to do was, and it did work, was we were looking for the types of organizations that were more aligned to you as a person. So that creative, we were looking at creativity, innovation, fresh, new sort of, those, almost that startup mentality, wasn't it? We were looking at types of organizations that were much more aligned to you. And then you said that you had a few conversations with, with some of your mates who were in these types of roles and actually really fancied it. So it gave us an opportunity to go down different paths until we really got set on something. And like I say, you'd had a few conversations, hadn't you? You had some amazing networking and contact through LinkedIn and other things that just ended up with you being in a position to go for this role as well. So should we talk about that process and actually how you ended up working where you are now?
Yeah, so I think I'd forgotten actually that's kind of how we approached it initially, and that was really useful because it's coming at it from a different end. Normally you're so right, what role do I want to do? You don't really think about the organization as much, and I think so to start to look at it from that lens was ideal. And actually getting this job was, I don't want to say easy, but it came to me. I got a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter saying that she'd seen my profile and could we talk? And obviously she had my CV then as well, and that there was a role at the company that I'm at now for somebody to, actually it wasn't the role that I've ended up in. So there was a role they were recruiting for, what they call a pre-sales role, and it would be aligned with the public sector. So they recognised that I had those skills. But then when I had the first interview, they said that they thought I might be more aligned to a sales role that they were recruiting, and I was thrilled because that's actually what I wanted. But I thought the other one might be a really helpful role to get in. But actually, they recognised other experience and potential in me for a sales manager role. So I interviewed then for that and got it. And again, we worked really closely to prep for that interview, and I had to do a presentation, and it was all to do with sales things that I had never ever heard of. The company were really helpful as well because they're a startup, because a lot of the people that work there are ex-police themselves, barristers. They're just the type of people that you naturally can talk to. They're very down to earth, and they were really supportive. They wanted people to succeed, and the thing that I liked was that the interview was not traditional. It wasn't like any I've done before. It was much more informal, getting to know me as a person, asking them questions, and there was the formality obviously of my previous experience, and they needed to be sure that I was right for the role, and obviously I had to do a presentation. But the work that me and you did obviously paid off because I got the job, and it all went really quickly from there. So I think I I was interviewed on something like the Monday, had my contract by the Wednesday, handed my notice in by the end of the week. It was amazing how
It
quick
was
it happened.
insane.
And yeah, and how easy it was. I was contacted because of how powerful the LinkedIn profile change was. They were obviously able to find me, put in the skills or keywords. I don't know exactly how they did it, but yeah, and it was, I think that was my first interview, wasn't it?
It was. You'd had some conversations. Yes, you did. Yeah, go on. You go.
I had another one afterwards because I remember you saying, sometimes things fall through. If you've got one lined up, just still go for it. It's good experience, if nothing else. And I had that, and actually, that role kind of evaporated. So it just goes to show that, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. It was my technically, it was my one and only interview, and then I got the job that I wanted and I absolutely love. So yeah, it's just
brilliant.
I'm sure it's not always that easy.
No,
and I was very lucky.
It's not.
There was yeah, and it could have been a very different road if this job hadn't come up. I think realistically we could have been looking at a much longer path to get me where I wanted, but already I was starting to see roles to go for, and I'd been contacted about a consultancy role at Warner Music, and it was like £700 a day. And it's just insanity really to even be considered something like that, but yeah, it was great.
I think what's lovely as well, Nick, is your mindset shifts, doesn't it? When you actually really start looking, I know it sounds a bit woo-woo this, but you were ready to accept another role. It was, we'd put a lot of prep in. We'd obviously have the weekly sort of accountability calls and those sort of things to make sure that we were both keeping on track and we were moving in the right direction. But ultimately, your mindset, you were open, looking, you're having conversations, you were networking, you were letting people know, subtly that you were looking, and it's weird, isn't it? Things just sort of come together, and when you're ready and open for it, things happen.
Yeah, I think just because I was going for something totally new, I didn't have the framework of old interviews and sort of tried and tired methods of doing stuff. This is all really new, so I just thought I'll just be myself. If they're going to interview me for a sales role, I can't talk to them about sales because I haven't ever done it. So they had to talk to me about other things, and then I had to demonstrate that I had enough about me to go and research the stuff they'd given me, prepare a slideshow and go for it. But yeah, I just it is. I think the other thing to mention, which I found really helpful, because I did struggle with my confidence and my mental health, particularly in the pandemic. And I remember you said on the morning, don't do any prep, go and do something for yourself, do some meditation,
take some time off,
go for a walk. Yeah, and I think that's so important as well, because you just get it, do your prep before. When it comes to the day, it will go how it's going to go by that point. And I think you can do yourself more justice by actually being relaxed and looking after your mental well-being. And I think that's a really great thing that you suggested, actually. And I do think things like that really do help. And kind of again, you sort of said it, things sound weird, visualization of actually thinking I'm going to get this job. And I actually felt like that when I got my last job I'd done all my prep and I thought, I can do this, I'm going to get this job, and I did. And I felt the same with this. I just thought, I've got a good feeling, I'm just going to be confident, go for it. And yeah, I think sometimes it is about mindset. It is about, and because even if I hadn't got it, I would have had a positive mindset about not getting it. I would have thought, okay, it wasn't for me, next. And not felt, oh my God, I'm never going to get anything, and it must be because of me or whatever. I was fully prepared to not get it, and we would crack on with the journey we were on. So yeah,
amazing.
the mindset is so key.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I love it. Thanks, Nick. That's brilliant. So the role you do now with regards to, obviously sales and, it, like we said, it's not an obvious fit. But if we look at maybe some of the skills and experience that you picked up previously and how they're helping you, it was very clear, obviously, from the Clarity 4D stuff that we did. And with Dave, who's a brilliant coach, and he sort of helps you to understand, how other people see you as well. But the skills and experience that you picked up within policing and banking, how are they helping you now within this role?
I think the main thing is being able to talk to people. So, I think there's this phrase, people buy from people, and it's true from what I can tell so far. And it's about building relationships, building networks, and obviously understanding the product and making sure it's the right fit for people. But I think essentially it is the skill particularly in policing, in learning how to communicate with people. So you're out on a job and you can see things are starting to get a bit heightened, and you have to use your skills in how to talk someone around to doing what you need them to do, or in interviews, how to get the information out of people that don't want to give you that information. And it's essentially the same in sales. I need to ask people, find out what their problem is, because our product is solving a problem. So I need to understand them, understand their role, their team. And I think obviously because I'm in the public sector, I have a knowledge. Obviously it's getting a little bit older now because I've been left over 5 years, but I have a good understanding of how the police works. The different departments, the type of activities that are required, the challenges that people face, frustration, and so I think they're the main skills. Obviously you pick up other things, being organized, operating systems, all that stuff, but principally it's about dealing with people. So I think that's the main skill that I brought across.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And I just been scribbling a few notes actually while you've been giving those examples, because if people look at this from a job description perspective and they think, oh, there's no way I'll match that, I don't, I haven't got those skills. But what you're talking about there was relationship building, collaboration, problem solving, negotiating and influencing, communication skills, the ability to be resilient and working under pressure. Just in that couple of minutes that you've talked through what you're currently doing, and you look at all the skills and experience that we pick up. I'm exactly the same as you. I hate transferable skills. It's such a dreadful terminology, and it's just massively overused. But if you look at what you talked about there and skills and experience that you pick up along the way throughout your career, you tick so many boxes, and you're in something that is pretty far removed, but you're still able to use all the stuff that you picked up previously and your knowledge of both, some really heavily regulated organizations and bodies, public sector, and obviously within banking as well. So that you must be such a real asset. And, just on a personal level, Nick, you were so coachable. It was, it was just such a pleasure working with you. I'd sort of, our accountability calls, I'd set you a bit of homework, and there was a couple of times when, life gets in the way, and that is perfectly okay. It doesn't matter. But we would get on those calls and we would always make some progress. And you were so coachable, and you just went away and did what I asked you to do. And obviously, it comes up trumps. And, I'm incredibly proud of you. And you should be really, really proud as well. You've done fantastic things. So well done.
Oh, thank you.
Talking of fantastic things, what did you get up to this weekend?
Well, I was DJing, which is a new skill and passion of mine. So I've been so lucky, but again, it comes down to networking and the friends and the people I've met. And the last few years, I've had some incredible opportunities because of that. And this weekend, I was lucky enough to play at an event. So there were like 3,000 people there. They weren't, I caveat that with, they weren't all at my set, but obviously, but yeah, a huge event, and I've been lucky enough to play for a few of their events now, and some others. So yeah, again, it was one of those things where I just thought I had decks when I was about 17, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. It was all vinyl then, and I just couldn't get the hang of it. And then being back sort of involved in the dance music scene, because traditionally I'd been more sort of indie guitar band type. Obviously it's all digital now, and I went and I did a course and surprised everyone that I learned how to do it. And then someone said, I'll give you a gig, and it was incredible. So yeah, and this Saturday, the night before, I really got the fear. I thought, I can't do this, because I wasn't opening the event as I have done before. So I was actually coming in later in the day when there were far more people there. I'd have to mix into somebody else's music to start. So there's all the kind of nerves around that. And I had the fear the night before, and I thought, what am I doing? I can't do this. And then I sorted my head out, and then I did it, and it went really, really well. And more importantly, I just enjoyed it. And
brilliant.
I just think everyone should. It sounds really naff, but just follow your passion. There's not many times in life where I feel that nervous, but also that excited.
Yeah.
And it's just such a thrill. And to
that
look
feeling
back
afterwards, isn't it? That feeling afterwards. Sorry, go on. To look back now.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's probably what you were going to say. All day yesterday, I felt brilliant. I felt so happy, and I just want more of that in my life. I've got other little dreams. Throughout my life, I've done things. So I've had a real passion for photography. So I did wedding photography for a while, and I actually built up a business, and after a while, I decided to stop that. But I've got a idea that I want to fly a plane one day. I'd like flying lessons one day. Not yet, but I just think,
wow,
just enjoy yourself and do things in your life that scare you, because that's when you'll have the most fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, obviously with the band as well, and I didn't pick up drumsticks until I left the police. I was sort of in my late 40s before I picked up drumsticks, for exactly that reason. It's just something that had always been a passion, and I think you just do it while you can. Do it while you can. Replacing weddings and big stuff, not your sort of 3,000 plus type thing, but it puts you under a bit of pressure. And you get twitchy about it, but the buzz is just unbelievable. So absolutely follow your passion, and I'm just really happy that obviously on a personal level, and the work that you're doing is making you happy as well. And obviously I saw you lad playing the Smiths, legend, amazing. Incredible.
So my son is a musician, and
following your footsteps.
Plays multiple instruments. His dad's taught him. And he's in a band, and I'm just so proud, massive, because I know what having a hobby and a passion can bring you as a person, and I think a lot of people don't have that for a number of reasons, and everybody is creative, everybody is. I firmly believe that, and I think that so watching my son play a 12-string and learning Johnny Marr, the Smith, is just blows my mind, and I'm so proud of him.
Yeah. How old is he?
He is 13.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. So
love it.
He's a real talent.
That's fantastic. Well, Nick, look, it's stunning interview, so inspirational, and I really think it will give so many people a lot of hope. And you can flip, you can completely flip and do something different, but you can see how the skills and experience that you picked up map across, and that first role doesn't have to be your forever role, and investing in yourself and all those sort of things. So honestly, brilliant interview. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for starting Blue Light, because I know you are literally changing people's lives, Andy. That's not, I'm not saying that lightly. That is the reality of it. So thanks to you. Keep it up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. That's lovely. Thank you. I really hope you enjoyed that. It was just lovely catching up with Nick and seeing how she's getting on. She's a few months into a new role now. And as I said in the interview and right at the start as well, she was just so much fun to work with. And yes, the level of detail that we go through in this is actually really helpful, I think, for a lot of people. So I really hope you found that as useful as I hoped you would. Now, don't forget, you can leave a review on Apple and Spotify, and please do, because it does really help to get the message out there that the podcasts are available to people. And the Academy is now open. So you can find out more by going to bluelightlevers.com/academy, but it's loads of stuff around support, live calls, group sessions, group calls, ask me anything, CV, LinkedIn, recruiters, all sorts of things, all on live calls for you. So you get loads and loads of help and support through the Academy. And you can also join the Blue Light Levers Facebook group as well, which is facebook.com/groups/Blue Light Levers. It's a private group. Thanks ever so much for joining us. It means a huge amount, and I really do appreciate you listening, and look forward to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Bye for now.